This is the pre-AP and on-level CBA review for Unit 4B. As always, everything that you need for this CBA that you need to make sure you know is up here. The one question we've had a lot of is if financial literacy will be on the CBA, and no, it will not. So that was previous, that will not be on this one at all. So let's get started. The first part says match the identities to their examples. This should really say properties. Match the properties to their examples. The identity property of addition, this says that if we add something to a number, it will stay the same, which would be B, because we can add 0 to anything and it remains the same. Distributive property of multiplication, we're going to distribute a number amongst a set of parentheses. So here I would distribute 3 to the x and 3 to the 4, which give me 3x plus or minus 12. So that is the distributive property C. Commutative property, I like to think of this if you're commuting somewhere, you are moving or changing location. So commutative property is going to be A because the numbers are changing location, but the answer would remain the same. Associative property, your groupings are going to change. Again, your answer would stay the same. So you have to have groupings, which means you have to have parentheses. Here, because I have 4 plus and then 6 plus 5 in parentheses, and then my parentheses moves to 4 plus 6 and my 5 is outside. Changes, but does not change the answer. Distributive property of division, again, is where it's kind of a backwards distribution, so we're going to divide 4x by 4 and just get x, and divide 16 by 4 and get 4. So F is going to be my distributive property of division. And then identity property of multiplication means that when we multiply a number by something, we get the same answer, which happens when we can multiply by 1, which is D. Number 7, so that took care of 1 through 6. Number 7, complete the number line below to show the solution for the inequality x plus 9 is less than or equal to 12. X plus 9 is less than or equal to 12. The first thing I'm going to do is solve by doing my inverse operation, minus 9 on both. And what I'm left with is x is less than or equal to 3. So when I go to graph this on my number line, I'm going to start with 3 as my reference point. I'm going to do it above the number line so y'all can see. But I will have a closed circle because it is also an equal to, which means that it can contain the number 3. And then since x has to be less than 3, my line will go this way because I want all of the numbers less than 3 to be included in that. Number 8. Choose which operation or operations can be used to solve the following equation. 12x equals 48. So there's a couple ways I can solve this, and we went over some of these in class. So the first way is I could do 12x divided by 12 and 48 divided by 12. And that is choice 2, so I can do that. The other way is choice 4, because I'm, again, dividing by 12 on both sides. So 1 and 4, or 2 and 4. Notice 2 and 4 are not an answer choice. 3 is not going to work because I don't need to divide 48 by itself or divide 12x by 48. So I'm going to cross out 3, which would cross out answer choice B, and it would cross out all of the above. So I'm left with A, which is 1 only, which I don't know yet, and then 1, 2, and 4. I know that 2 and 4 work, so hopefully you would assume that 1 would work also. The reason 1 works is if you think about when you divide by 2, it's the same as multiplying by a half. So if I take 10 divided by 2, it's 5. If I take 1/2 times 10, or 1/2 of 10, it's also 5. So whenever you divide by a whole number, divide by 12, it's the same as multiplying by its fraction. So I can also multiply both sides by 1/12. And by doing that, I'm going to cancel out the 12, which would leave me with the x, and then I'm taking 1/12 of 48 to find the answer. So 1 also works. So the correct answer would be C. Number 9, which problem does not match the inequality modeled below? So my inequality below is going to be that x has to be greater than, because my number line is going to the right, or equal to 2. So you must be at least 2 feet tall to ride the loco logs at the fair. I would say that that works because once you're 2 feet tall, you can ride it. Children ages 2 and older, that 2 and older, can take medicine for a cough. Good. Only toddlers under the age of 2 should sit in a baby carrier. Well, that would be less than 2 for that, so that one right now does not work. In order to fit in the wall, a screw must be at least 2 inches in length. That works. So my correct answer, or the one that does not work, would be C. Number 10, how many squares will balance one rectangle? So I need to get the rectangle by itself. I'm going to cross 4 squares off of each side, and I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the rectangle equals 8. If I were going to write an equation for this, it would be, to start, 3, 6, 9, 12 equals x plus 4, and then x would be your 8. Right, two possible solutions for the inequality below. So first I have to solve, which I'm going to do by dividing because it's the inverse operation to multiplication. Divide both sides by 3, 18 divided by 3 is 6, and then 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I'm just going to be left with x. So x has to be bigger than 6 for this inequality to be true. So x could be equal to 7, it could be equal to 8. Both of those would work. There's my two solutions. Anything basically bigger than x would work, or bigger than 6 would work. Number 12, what is the minimum number of 30 desk classrooms needed for testing if there are 480 students? So 480 is going to have to be, I'm going to have something that is less than or equal to that. So I have 30 desk classrooms and 8, and I want that number, I need at least 480 students, so that number is going to have to be bigger than 480, bigger than or equal to, because I'm going to have that many students. So whatever I multiply by x, it's going to have to be big enough to get me to 480 or bigger, because I don't want anything smaller. I have 480 students, so that's the least number I can have. So the correct answer will be C. Number 13. Jamie works at a sandwich shop. The table below shows the number of tomatoes she used when building different amounts of sandwiches per each week. Let T represent the number of tomatoes she used, and let S represent the total number of sandwiches made. Which equation models the relationship between these variables? So to solve this one, I'm going to need to compare my tomatoes to my sandwich amount. There's a couple different things I can do. I'm going to just go ahead and start by dividing. It's clear that it's not an even number that it's going to work out to be in between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and just divide 6 divided by 4 to see if I can figure out what that scale factor is. 4 goes into 6 one time. I get a remainder of, or I get 4, and I get a remainder of 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a decimal and a 0. And 4 goes into 25 times with no remainder. So 1.5 is multiplied by 4 to get to 6. I'm going to go ahead and check that for the next one and do 1.5 times 6 and see if I get 9. I have one decimal place. This is going to be 30 and 90, one decimal place. So I do get 9. So it works with 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and write my equation as 1.5 t is equal to the number of sandwiches made. And then I'm going to go look for that. So I've got t equals 2 times s. That doesn't work. T equals 1.5. T isn't equal to 1.5. I have to multiply it by. So now I'm left with division problems. So I kind of have to look backwards. If I looked when I did this, I can take the amount of sandwiches I have. I can divide it by 1.5 because I did 6. I can do 6 divided by 1.5, and that's going to give me 4. So I can do D, T equals S divided by 1.5. So I'm just doing the operation in the opposite direction, which if I wanted to get T by itself, just like we do when we solve equations, we would divide both sides by 1.5. Number 14, Mr. Davis wanted to go to the driving range on his day off. The number of buckets he bought, B, and the amount of golf balls he hit, H, is represented in the table below. To calculate the total number of golf balls that Mr. Davis would hit, you can use the equation where B represents the number of buckets he bought and H represents the total number of golf balls hit. Which equation and description show the relationship in the table? So I'm going to go ahead and look, and it looks like I need to multiply by 200. So I'm going to write my equation as 200 times B would equal H. That's the first thing I'm going to go look for, is that equation. So here, because it's written the other way, I'm going to write H equals 200B. So already I can cross off C and D because those don't have the right equation. So now I have to look at the explanation piece. H equals 200B because the number of buckets bought depends on the number of golf balls hit. That's not true, it's actually backwards. So now I'm going to look at A, because the number of golf balls hit depends on the number of buckets bought. Yes, the number of golf balls he hits is going to depend on how many buckets he buys. The more buckets he buys, the more golf balls he'll hit. So the correct answer is B. Number 15. Which problem situation matches the equation below? 12x equals 30. Ashton earned $12 repairing a computer. If she charges $30 per hour, what is x, the number of hours she spent repairing the computer? Well, 12 would be 12 times the hour, but this says she charges $30 per hour, so that's not quite right. That would need to be a division problem, or actually it would be the multiplication problem of 30x equals 12, and we'd have to solve from there, so that's not correct. Will drove 12 miles to school and back for 30 days. What is x, the total number of miles he drove for those days? That one we would need to actually divide x by 30 or multiply 12 times 30, so that's not going to be correct either. Marissa has 30 free minutes left on her cell phone plan. If she used 12 of the minutes, what is x, the number of free minutes she has remaining? That would be a 30 minus 12 situation equals x. That's not what we're looking for. Josh had braces on his teeth for 30 months. What is x, the number of years he wore braces? Well, if he had 30 months, 12 months in a year, so if I multiplied by the number of years, then that would be able to tell me the answer. So the correct answer is D. What is the value for x in the following equation? Okay, so to solve this, we've been doing this for a while. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. So to get x by itself, because those are going to cancel. So x is going to be equal to 3.05 times 5. 2 decimal places, so I need 2 in my answer. This is 25. This is 2. And this is 15. 2 decimal places. So my answer would be 15 and 25 hundredths. So good luck studying, and come into tutorials if you have any questions. Have a great 3-day weekend.